Ah, today I'm going to be showing you the GUI I made for the game, pretty much. So without further ado, let's get into that I suppose. I do apologise if this takes a bit to load. I've added so much to it and there's so many textures that it does take a while. As you can probably discern from that. I mean, I will say this, I've created something that makes it so that it does reuse the textures, so it's not going to overload us too much. It's not making the RAM work too hard because it's reusing half of these. It's just taking the texture from one cube and applying it to all the others. But yeah, as I was saying. So this is my work, and on the screen we have the HUD. We have this, and we have the crosshair. This crosshair can be resized if you want it to be. You have to go to Hello GL and then to the render 2D draw function, and in there you'll find variables to resize it to your heart's content. If you wanted to, you can make it really thick or really thin or really long. It's honestly up to you. Apart from that, we also have the buttons over there. To access them, you do have to go into free mouse mode though. So I go into capture, I can't really access them. I can right click, but they won't actually do anything properly. I mean, they will allow you to click on them and they'll react to that, but they won't work properly until you click free mouse. I just missed like 2 times. Actually, real quick, I'll stare at this. Yeah, rainbows. Anyhow, where was I? So, in here, if you hover over these, they will change colour a bit. And you can click on them to expand them. And then they'll drop down the box and all that, and there'll be stuff in it. And that box can contain virtually anything you want it to. Anything apart from other GUI elements, that is. I mean, I suppose if you really, really wanted to, you could, like, encode those GUI elements into the GUI element, which is the drop down box. Because this is basically like a whole separate GUI element. These boxes are. Like, you can't see it anymore, but there was a thing over here that said tree GUI and controls help GUI. And that's basically these things. And there's also one called droppable draw, something like that. And that's what these two are based off. Anyhow, we got this. It's the scene tree, I guess you can call it. Basically, a list of everything in the level and its relationship to everything else. So, for things that have a solid line, that means it's a parent of. So, all this down from here, here, and here is a parent of teapot. For things that are like this, a line with a gap in the middle, that basically means something above it is the parent of that. Which means logically, there will always be a line here, unless something is not a parent of the world plane, in which case something has gone horribly wrong. Now, it won't always be a solid line, obviously, there are gaps here, but you get the gist. And for controls is basically just an image. Fun fact. You can tell that by the fact that there are arrows here. But it shows you the controls, like right click for extra controls, which brings up this, and you can change stuff. And then numpad 9 and 3 to fly up and down. Which, yes, that is how you fly up and down. I wanted it to be something like shift or control, but those buttons just don't work for this kind of thing. It is frustrating and very annoying. But yeah, that's how you fly up and down, because those buttons did work. And control rotation, as I'm sure you can imagine, controls the rotation of all the cubes and everything that has rotation enabled. So let's just capture this again. Hang on. Capture, and we can like control rotation. But yeah. That's the main GUI element. Also, fun fact about these is if I were to click here, logically it will close this and this. Because it will close this first, and in many applications it will be like, alright, close one, and then it will move on to the next chunk of code, which will magically say, oh, there's another button here that was moved to here. I should close that as well. To solve this issue, I created something called end mouse tree, which basically stops mouse information from going further down the tree for the current frame, basically. So if I click this once, the mouse data will not propagate to the children. So controls will not know where it is because controls is a child of tree map. And so is the bar at the end. And as you can see, it works perfectly. So it's not closing both of those at the same time. Also, I can spam click, which is nice. I've only recently just got that working. Before it was not working, but now it does. You are welcome. You can spam click to your heart's content now. And yeah. Also, this bar was a pain in the ass. Because the bar has to perfectly resize so that it isn't starting here, so that it starts exactly here and then ends exactly there. And it has to resize itself perfectly every time someone does something like that. And why it has to do that is because these blue dividers in the middle, they're transparent. And speaking of the matter, capture. I didn't see many people doing anything with transparency, which is amazing because it's only like 2 lines of code that you have to type to get it up and running. I mean, there was a bit of an issue. Transparency doesn't exactly support Z buffer. I mean, you can still do the Z buffer while having transparency, but the problem is transparent objects will not treat it like it exists. So if I have something that's transparent and then another thing behind that, which is higher up in the render order than a wall which is behind the transparent thing, that thing which is higher up in the render order will render behind the transparent thing even though it shouldn't be visible. Which is a pain in the ass. But as long as you like make all the transparent things the last things in the wall to be rendered, it isn't an issue. Because as you can see, when it goes behind the teapot, the transparent thing itself will become invisible. You just have to make sure that every transparent thing is the last thing to be rendered. And that's pretty much how you do transparency. Which is fine for the HUD. The HUD is obviously the last thing to be rendered because it renders above everything. And it's also 2D, which means it has to be the last thing to be rendered. Because HUD doesn't have Z buffer, it's not 3-dimensional. But it is a bit of a difficulty for something like particles, where there may be things high up in the render order, and, well, there are, the collision test. But for those, it's not really a big deal. It's not that much of an issue. If it became more of an issue, I could move them so that they're above the teapot, basically. It won't cost me anything. I could do that. But it's not too much of an issue, at least in my opinion. And then there are the stencils as well, which are high up in the render order. In case you're wondering, lower down means higher up. I know it's confusing. But they're high up in the render order, which means that they also will render above the particles, but For stencils, it's not much of an issue because of the fact that they just completely ignore the Z buffer and its demands, meaning anything in front of them will just stop existing, or any pixel in front of them in three-dimensional space will just stop existing and it just won't be there, and this will render over the teapot. I still think it looks cool though, regardless of that little issue. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the white space isn't actually a stencil on this. I just blew your mind, didn't I? But no, it's not actually a part of the stencil. The white space is a part of the scene object, but it's not a part of the stencil, which means that won't render over the teapot. But everything here is a part of the stencil, which means everything there will render over the teapot. But yeah, it does have transparency as well, which I think is pretty cool. So, with all that said, from now on, I don't think I'll be doing much work on this project. I've gotten everything that I wanted done, and I've got lighting that you can change. So, and I think that's good enough. I think this is all good enough. Got a lot of textures, got lighting, got stencils, got collision. What more could you want? And animation, obviously. In case the fact that the whole world is spinning, well, all the cubes are spinning isn't obvious enough for you. And they're spinning twice. They're rotating around the teapot because the teapot's spinning and they're children of the teapot. And they're also doing their own individual rotations. And I also got particles which are animated, which is nice. Yeah, that's just teapots. And yeah. But yeah, I also got particles, and they rotate around. So if you don't see much work after this video, it's to be expected, because I got a lot done. I got everything I wanted done. Got a nice GUI. I might still do some things though. Like I could maybe make another tree map here that will be like for the actual GUI itself. Of course, though, if I do that, I am going to have to make it so that when that's opened, nothing else is opened. I'm going to have to set it up to do that, or set that up, because that is something that I can do if you really needed it to. If you have like so many tabs and you wanted it so that only one of them can be visible at the same time, one of them can be visible at a given time, and you don't want the other ones to be visible because if they both were, they would go outside the bar. You can do that, which would be a pain. Not a pain because it's hard to do, it'd just be a pain because when Lucas God is having many tabs open. But, you know, it can be done. So I might do another one just purely for the GUI tree. I mean, it's only going to consist of 3 objects, but yeah. The 3 objects being this, and the bar, which was very hard to do. I'm pretty sure I already mentioned that though. And yeah, also, while we're on the topic, for some reason, this text seems to get just slightly smaller the less lines there are. I say that because this is times by 0.18. We times every new line by 0.18, and that leaves us with this. So logically, if we take away one line, it should be the same amount of distance. The distance from here to here should be the same, but it gets smaller. And that can very easily be seen if I do something like delete tbot, and you notice it's smaller. And it's not that easy to notice, but if I delete, they're already deleted. Is it gonna let me continue? It's not gonna let me continue. Where's you closed my bloody... But yeah, it gets smaller and smaller the more you delete. There is protection for deletion, by the way. I just forget to add it. I just forgot to add it to the cubes, so that will clash. But as you can see, if I do that one again, it's protected. And now you can see it's like so close that it should not be that close, but it is. It's annoying. I wish it wasn't. For some reason, it just gets ever so slightly smaller the less lines there are. It's stupid and it's annoying. There is a solution for that. I could also make it so that the box resizes along with it so that it gets smaller and bigger, but it's honestly not worth the hassle. I might just set it to a fixed size. That would probably be a better idea in hindsight. But yeah, although there is a problem with a fixed size, and that is if you add more stuff, then it will go outside the the droppable menu. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. Nice controls, nice GUI. Gotcha. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to add deletion protection to the cubes now. Goodbye.